Can you talk a little bit again, please?
Yes, and I don't want to be like that man in Gabon who's right in your face the whole time.
Yeah, well, that was on purpose.
I know it was I know it's on purpose, but I'm saying I want something sort of,
Okay.
slightly drawn back or something. So anyway, here
Okay, so
here I am,
here you are.
just talking about how I got involved in crop circles, and starting with my late husband, giving a talk about crop marks in ancient rock carvings. Somebody at the end of the lecture coming up and saying some of these symbols are appearing in the fields of Britain. This was about 1989. We were called. We wanted to know more about it, and we told there was a scientific conference in Oxford. So we went down to that, and the theory was that these formations were caused by the wind and by vortices, which came over the lee of the hill and created these strange shapes. But unfortunately that year they started appearing in East Anglia where there were no hills. So Michael and I were rather disconcerted to be at a scientific conference where the evidence which was before them was totally ignored in favour of a hypothesis which was slowly dissolving even as the speakers spoke. So the next day we were driving down on the A34 from Newbury to Winchester, and I was saying to Michael, I would like to find my own crop circle and make up my own mind about what this phenomenon was. And at that moment, on the other side of the motorway, Michael said, look, there's one over there. So we had to turn around the next roundabout, come back, climb over the fence, and Michael stayed in the lower. It was like a dumbbell shape, which was a circle, a shaft, another circle with a raise over the top. Michael stayed in the bottom half. I went up the top half. And it had been recently made. It was still, although it was fairly cold, it was still humming, and there was an extraordinary intricate circle raised up like an interwoven nest in the middle of it. I sat about 2/3 in the circle, thinking, what does this mean? When I suddenly thinking this is what we're doing to the planet, this is some kind of warning, and in fact then became enveloped in a wonderful, non-judgmental, loving, slightly sort of blue, feminine energy, and that was the beginning. So Michael, being archaeologist, ex-civil servant, said if there's something which is manifesting itself in the fields, then we have to scientifically study it. It can be measured, photographed, and whatever. So that was the beginning, and then Michael founded the Centre for Crop Circle Studies. So from very simple circles, it evolved quite phenomenally quickly. So from simple circles, it started producing almost like a story of the history of mankind with early Mother Goddess figures. There was one year when they had all the tutelary deities of the week, which were on a mosaic, Roman mosaic from Chilgrove, and they'd been where there had been floats. And Michael was probably one of the few people as an archaeologist who recognised that these symbols represented the tutelary deities of the week. For instance, the mirror for Luna, and the shield of Mars, and so on. So the time that we were involved, and certainly directed to different crop circles, was the time when I think our knowledge of the ancient world we could bring to bear on the possible understanding of what these symbols meant. So then it evolved more and more, and the interesting thing was that the people who were, you can only say the attractor factor, the people who were called, were all people who were, in a way, professional people, but they had the gift of disseminating this information from the Astronomer Royal to farmers to dowsers and then to scientists. And what people found was that as they were called, so a crop circle would appear in the vicinity. And so very quickly we understood that it was a communications. It was a very gentle communication between us and humanity. What the message is and was, I think, is still to be known, but it has evolved, and people have come in and gone out as they've had some gift or understanding of it, written about it, disseminated the information, and then moved on. It's become increasingly technical and into quite another area now. But going back to the early involvement, there were, I think, for us, 3 very significant formations to which we were undoubtedly directed and led. And one of them, I'm going to show you because this, I think, has the most meaning for me. This was the one in Barbary Castle, if you can see that, which was quite extraordinary. I've got pictures of it. And I think it shows, or deciphered, that this represents in the top, this represents the unmanifest speared by the manifestation, by spirit. So it's the unmanifest which has been pierced or directed by spirit. The second one down here, which is dancing and very similar to the decoration you get on the hems of the mother goddess figures. This one, I think, is undoubtedly the dance which brings all beings into life. And the third one, which is probably very significant up here, is a series of ratchets. I think 7 ratchets. And this represents the ascent of humanity, the possible, the turning and the ascent, which is the purpose of us on earth, which is to have our experiences, to raise our consciousness, and then to return to the source from which we come. So that for us was a very significant formation. There were other ones, and this was the book which Michael contributed. This is the Mandelbrot, which appeared in the fields of East Anglia. I'm afraid rather ignored by the scientific community nearby in Cambridge, but still very powerful. It's a fractal, and it represents, in fact, chaos. It represents the constant breaking down, but the renewal of all these little circles, and it's a constant movement from chaos into order and back again. So that's, I think, a very significant, and it's also significant because, of course, you recognize that it's heart-shaped. Another one which Michael wrote about, so I'm just going to go back because that's the Chilgrove, that's the mosaic, Roman mosaic at Chilgrove, with the tutelary deities of the week on it, which again, probably Michael's one of the few people in England who would immediately associated this with the appearance of these symbols in the crop circles 2,000 years later. Where Michael also had this very strange experience, they were all in the wagon and horses, wondering what this mystery was. And an American said, "You Brits, whole of kind of humanity walking past, from the crying child to the talking people to the dogs." Is this the one you wanted?
Well, no, it was just quite nice you just like going through the book.
Well, this was, as I was saying, that Michael, they were all in the pub, wagon and horses, And the Americans said, "You silly Brits, do something. If you think it's communication, communicate." So he went out and he sloshed in the corn, talked to us. A few weeks later, this extraordinary inscription arrived. Because it wasn't in English, it didn't attract very much attention. But it's undoubtedly a communication and an ancient, hitherto unknown script. Yeah. And it has on either side signs of divinity or deity, and in the centre there's a double bar. So it seems to be the name and the epithet. Perhaps I won't give you the translation now, but it's something about the creator and something about the purpose, the loving purpose of creation. Something along those lines. So those were the ones which, so those are the symbols talking about. But the other things which were associated with the crop circles, because there's a very gentle, humorous side. People who said things like, "I know exactly what it is, and I've got it by the tail," almost immediately there'd be a crop circle, and then a tail would appear. So it was a very mischievous prankster thing, and again, when people tried to record it, cameras broke and recording machines broke. So that was again, a rather humorous thing of defying people with their left brains thinking that they could decipher it and knew the answer. There's also sound, which there was something called Professor Gerald Hawkins in America, and he thought the sounds were very significant. And there was obviously a warning, because animals, if you went and talked to people, the first thing the farmers would say if a crop circle appeared in the field, all the animals were bunched down at one end of the field, and dogs barked, and so there was a very high-pitched sound which animals could hear, but human beings couldn't hear. So it was a sound component. And then later there's been caught on videos these balls of light. Going back to the communication, there were people who were very psychic, and I was thinking particularly there was somebody in Holland, and he could see these balls of light long before the actual crop circle manifested itself. There were people like Richard Andrews, who was a farmer. He could douse the crop circles in the ground maybe 6 months before the corn grew up. So there was a lot of and Michael, I'd forgotten, the original thing was he was looking at an ancient site, and the farmer came down and said, "We've got this very strange phenomenon in the garden, come and have a look at it." And it was again a crop circle which had appeared in their vegetable patch. So there were cases of them appearing in snow and other medium. But one would say I think they started in England, and then they really went to places where people would respond to them or recognize them. But just going back to the very beginning, we went to a scientific and medical network conference in Winchester, probably about 86 or 87. There was a Russian psychologist there, and he mentioned about burnt circles appearing outside nuclear power stations, and this was having psychic effect on the people working inside. So that was the beginnings of knowing that they were appearing in Russia, and then particularly Siberia. They've appeared in Japanese rice fields. And the one thing they do is they suck out all the water. So they've appeared Australia, they're burnt circles, really a worldwide phenomenon. And then Holland, I think Germany, one or two, but not many not many in Italy or France or Spain or the Catholic countries. Because the main thing is the attractor factor, drawing our attention to what it is, and for us to try and raise our consciousness to understand the mystery of it all. There's cases, I probably won't haven't got time now, but it seems to be a wave energy. So people who go into the crop circles either feel elated or they feel a bit despondent. So there's a huge number of effects, invisible effects, which people are encountering. But there have been spectacular cases of people being healed there, and other adverse effects as well. So again, you're looking at a wave, undoubtedly a kind of wave energy. And I think, I said, certain scientists are working on this and also working at, on the genuine crop circles, there's almost like the crop circles, the stalks have imploded. So it's almost like the effect of putting them in microwave. And those undoubtedly are what the genuine formations have, and the ones which people claim to have made, man-made, are the ones which don't show the same characteristics. So there's been a lot of information put down, and there's been the relevant people called to try and make sense of them all. But at the end, it's an ongoing mystery, which is what it's meant to be.
Why do you think it's meant to be a mystery?
Well, because I don't think we, in our hubris, our pride and arrogance, we don't have to know the answers to everything. And I think it's a wake-up call, trying to waken up our consciousness. And I said this one, which, is it harbingers? This was written, I think, about 1990 something. Are they in fact harbingers of world change? And was what happened, possibly with the harmonic convergence in, was it 1987, was this the beginning of something which was people from beyond our, or in the cosmos, really drawing our attention to what we're doing on this earth, which affects the whole of the cosmos. But it's the beginning, I think, of awakening consciousness, because I think we have to decide, or humanity, I think, has to understand its role in the whole cosmic plan.
And what do you think is the role in the cosmic plan of the human?
Well, I think we have free will. I think that's unusual. We have individual consciousness. I think we're on the planet where in our lives we can affect change, and I think we're here to do exactly that, and then return with the experiences we have. I mean, I think it's a plan which interacts with the whole of creation. I think it does.
But is there a bigger purpose behind that, apart from just experiencing?
Well, I think it's our role in the cosmos, because what we do here, if we mess this up, it affects the whole of the perfect harmony of the cosmos. And there's, just with our planets, everything is held in attraction. Nothing is actually contiguous, but everything is held in attraction, and it's perfectly tuned and balanced. And if we get off center here, it puts everything else in the cosmos, I think, out of balance. But what time we have, and whether the message will become more and more vital, we have yet to see. But we have signs.
What is your feeling where humanity is going now?
Well, I think humanity is at crossroads. I think there's been a huge awakening of consciousness among young people, but coming up against the vested interests of greed and everything else, which and people just burying their heads in the sand and thinking, not having a long-term consideration, for humanity. And I think if humanity doesn't wake up, well, the planet, I'm sure Earth will still survive, but it will be, it will either heat up or cool down, but there'll be some way of disposing of sort of these rather pesky human beings at the moment.
And do you think the crop circles awakening?
Well, I think they were, because they were unlike, up until then, it was people's ideas which were not, I think, for the first time, although they had appeared in the 18th century, I think it was the physical manifestation from another dimension. And I think and it's also in symbols. You see, our language has become so debased that with symbols, it's recognised worldwide by humanity, and maybe this is the one way forward of people, being united. I think, so, and the symbols are recognised by people, by the people who want to be awake. I think.
Yeah, it would be good if they do school outings to some crop circles.
Well, there have been outings of people, and it's quite.
Just changing the.
But I think the most extraordinary thing is the attractor factor, and I was saying the original people, literally sort of, put down what they were doing and came to learn more about it. And from all walks of life. That's extraordinary people. And everybody has a little piece of the jigsaw puzzle. And together it makes sense. But certainly nobody knows. Nobody has the answer. And I think that's probably a thing for humanity. Everybody has a little piece to put into the pot. But nobody has the one answer, which is why we have to work, we have to collaborate. Not only in humanity, but also collaborate with the cosmos, and co-create. I mean, that's the ultimate thing. And we have this gift, we're through. We have this gift of being awake to the cosmos. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Okay. Is there anything else?
No, but I'll film you a little bit with the books when you just go through them.
It's just really, I just brought these just to sort of show you, I mean this, and we're very much involved with the early ones, Harbingers of World Change, or, I mean that's one of the early ones. I mean that's, it's so extraordinary. And of course, I won't go into this, is why it was necessary for people to, to suddenly debunk it all and say they were all man-made. I mean, that's... So these are some of the early ones. There's the Barbary Castle one again. I think one of the most extraordinary formations ever. And of course you get it in early kind of alchemy. That's the Mandelbrot, again out in East Anglia. There it is again, the heart sign. And then, it's not a very good example, but if you've been to a crop circle, the laying of the crop is utterly different from people who go around with planks. Which just destroy the crop and flatten it. And I said each year there's been a more and more sort of sophisticated, more and more kind of knowledge given. You see, there's another one that was titled Devizes, Crop Circles and Earth Energies. You got that one? So. That's it. Should I bring, I think there's the same one, sort of same ones, but oh, I tell you one which is, I'm just going to show you this one, because this is the Julia set. That's an extraordinary one, because people flew over it and there was nothing there, and then they flew back, and something like in broad daylight, something like 45 minutes later, it appeared. And there are people who actually said they could see it making. But there was a Dutch mathematician, he came over to talk at a conference, and he was convinced this was fake. When he came, it was so complicated mathematically. He said, no, there's no way that could have been faked. But what he did say was, we cannot imagine the square root of -2, but what we can do is put it into the equation and play with it. And that seems to be a way of saying it's a mystery. We just say that it exists, and we put it into the equation and play with it.